In this video, I will show you exactly how you can create a high-quality, game-ready 3D AI character with the best 3D AI tools available. I will show you step-by-step how to create our concept image in ComfyUI, how to generate the individual 3D model parts, giving them a clean topology and UVs, as well as texturing them directly in ComfyUI with Trellis too. I will also show you how to rig your 3D AI character and then finally import it into Unreal Engine. By the end of this video, you will be able to create game-ready 3D characters way faster than ever before. Having said that, let's dive right into it. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. For the ones who don't know me yet, as always, my name is Philip from Pixel Artistry. I'm a professional 3D artist, and on this channel, I'm exploring with you the world of AI-powered 3D generation. Let's directly dive into it by creating now our image for our 3D character. Because for creating the image, I'm using here ComfyUI with a combination of Qwen Image 2512. And to use this, we first need to start ComfyUI, links down below as always. And once we have that, I'm using here the cloud version of ComfyUI because it's really fast and handy and you don't need to pre-install anything. In case you would like to install it, you can simply first search it here in the browse templates one, then you can search here, for example, 2512. And then you will see that it's popping up over here, Qwen Image 2512. Then we can click on it and then it will pop up here. And then just make sure, in case you would like to use it locally, that you then download those models over here. Put them in the corresponding folders, and then you can use it as well. Going back now to our prompt, I put in here some keywords, you know, that we get a good resolution and stuff like this. I also put in here that we have a highly detailed mechanical design. We have mecha, claws, and of course our dinosaur. It's steampunk style, and we have full body. Always make sure that you have something like in here, like solid background, so we don't get anything distracting in the background that becomes maybe problematic later on. And that's basically it. And as you can see here, everything is basically stored here inside. So if you would like to see more nodes or you would like to change something, then you can go here to edit, and then you will see all the nodes in here as well. And you could change here, for example, also the steps and so on. But I will leave this by default because this is working really great already. And then once I have that, I can then simply click here on run and then wait for our first image. All right, and once generated, as you can see, we're getting this really nice and detailed image over here. We also have him in 3D view, which is very important when we now generate then the single parts and so on. I also upscaled here the image, so with a load upscale model, and then used here an upscale image node to then have an even in a higher precise resolution. By the way, I will put all the workflows that I'm using in this video also down below in the video description for you directly to download. And once we have that, next step is now that we will create single parts of our model, because this way we can also get a better topology with splitting our model into parts, and that we get more accurate textures. So we have a lot of advantages to split up the image, so I can highly recommend that. And to do that is first that we're going to download our image, then save your image somewhere. And then once we have that, we can then go into our next step, which is using then Nano Banana Pro. And I use this here on Tripo AI because it's really fast and really easy to use. So I will put you this website also down below. And once we are here, we can then upload our image first. So I will add the image that we just saved. And then once we have it here, what I can do now is that we can type in here prompt. We would basically like to split the torso, for example, as well as the arms, the legs, and the tail. So I will go back and then say something like show only the leg. And then I will hit run. Make sure that we're using here a 2K resolution, just to not lose any details. And then as you can see, it extracts perfectly our leg that we have from our dinosaur in a really good resolution, and it's already filling the whole frame. And this is perfect for us, so we can directly use this by also downloading it and saving it to your PC. Make sure then to do this with every part. I did this, for example, as well for the arm, as you can see here, and then I just zoomed in by saying zoom in by 20%, that we had it like this. I did the same as well for the tail, and as well, of course, for the torso, for example, and of course as well his head. All right, and once we split our images, we are then ready to already go into Tripo AI to generate our 3D models. You can also use here, for example, Hanyuan 3D or Trellis 2 for a local resolution. But for this one, I will use Tripo because I think it's really good at generating like high quality meshes, you know, like high resolution meshes that we can then use later on for retopology and so on. What I will do is that I'm going to upload like the single parts that are generated with Nano Banana. So for example, I could choose here the head that we split. I will make then sure that my mesh quality is on ultra. For example, the texture we can ignore, we don't really need it because we do the texturing later on. And then just make sure, you know, that you have it set to triangle and to auto, because we would just like to have the best resolution possible, because this is just our high poly mesh. So what I will do then is just click on generate model, and then we have a look at the result in a second. And then as you can see, once generated, we can have a look at it and it looks super detailed, and we have this really nice details in the head, and we wouldn't achieve that when we, you know, generate everything at once. So I think this is really cool. And what we could do now is that once you have the model, is that you go here to export, then make sure it also has the naming already right here, make sure that it's like FBX format, and make sure that it's set here to Blender. 4K is fine, but we don't really need this. And then you can go here to export and then just save it to your PC. Same thing I did also for the leg, as you can see here, for example, then as well for the arm that we have over here, and as well for the body. As you can see, this is also super detailed, which is great. And of course our tail. And once you have all them and downloaded them, we can then already go into Blender and start to assemble our parts, which is really cool because then we can already bring it all together. Alright, so once in Blender, what I will do is that I'm going here to File, Import, and then I will start to import our models that we just downloaded from Tripo. And as you can see, they might be in zip folder, so just make sure to unzip them. And once we have that, we can then go, for example, here then in the folder, double click on it, and then search here for the FBX file. Make then sure that you press import FBX. And once we have it then in here, as you can see, we have all the details and so on. And we will do that now with every part, and then we will start assembling them together. All right, and once we have then all parts, we can then start placing them. So just make sure that you start with pressing G, and then you can move it around. And like this, we can then move it around by holding the middle mouse button and then, you know, putting it in the right position. So we do this quickly. You can rotate parts by pressing R, by the way, and then you can just shift them around. And great part is as well, as you can see here, that they are also aligning quite well, because Nano Banana did a really well job, you know, to align those parts, and they really work like a robot would. So this is great, you know, that they also make kind of sense when assembling those parts, which I think is amazing. And once we have assembled them, I will just make sure that I scale the head a bit more, because as you can see, it's a bit large right now for the body. So just make sure to hit S, and then we can also assemble it a bit better. You can, by the way, also always check the reference image that you have it on the side, or directly load it into Blender, and then you can see for the proportions and so on. And a really handy way is, by the way, in case you notice that we have some gaps over here, what we can do is that we select our model over here. Then I'm going to sculpting, and then just make sure to make the brush larger over here. Then we go to elastic grab, like this one. And then as you can see, we can then just refine it, that it will then close kind of the holes, and that we don't have any holes then, and that it kind of aligns better, you know, with the mesh. Once we aligned then the parts, as you can see, this is then the result I get here. And you will notice that I only have the right arm at the moment and the right leg. And this is because I would like to have my character symmetric in the end. So I will just make sure that, you know, I mirror those over later on. But we don't need it for now, because we first retopologize now our meshes into low poly meshes. And once we have that, we can then still do the mirroring in Blender. But for now, this is way handy, and we will save us a lot of work. Make sure now before we export them that you selecting those parts over here, and then just make sure to hit Ctrl and A, and then make sure that you say here all transforms. So now all transforms are frozen, and they will be in the right position like this. One thing that could still be is that the origin is not at the center of the world. So what I usually do is as well that I'm going in here, object, set origin, and then origin to 3D cursor. And then we have it in the world origin like this. We can do this now for each part as well here. So just that we have this. and then it should work like this. Also make sure that our character is standing kind of on the ground. So I will just lift it up by selecting everything here. And before we now export it to Unreal 3D, what I will do is that I'm going to decimate our mesh so that we will keep the details that we have over here, but have a much lower polygon count than what we have right now. Because as you can see here, we have a lot of triangles right now, and we don't really want that, because otherwise the import to Unreal 3D will take a long time. So what I will do is that I'm selecting my mesh over here, then I'm saying add modifier, then I'm searching for the decimate modifier, then you can choose something like 0.1. And then once applied, you can see that our poly count dropped down a lot, like to 100k triangles around this number, which is great. And once we have that, we also see that we keep most of the details here, which is nice. And once we have that, we can then go here to apply. And then you will see that the poly count is way lower. And then as a last step to keep things clean, make sure that you rename your models over here. And I can put those as well in a collection, you know, that we keep it in order. So what I will do is selecting all of them and then hitting M, new collection. Then I can say high poly or something like this. And then create. And then as you can see, we all have them in this group now. And once you have that, we are then ready to export our meshes. And what I can do now is that I'm going, for example, selecting here the head model. Then I'm going to File, Export, FBX, and then just make sure once you selected FBX that you make sure here to say limit to selected objects, and then say something here like hi dino head. And then make sure to export it. Okay, great. And we are already at the retopology stage now. So what I can do is that we're going here to 3d.handyuan.tencent.com. I will also link it to you down below as always. By the way, you will also find a detailed PDF guide with a step-by-step checklist that you can then download for free. And this will then explain like the whole workflow with also additional tips and so on. So make sure to check that out down below in the video description to download it. So once we're here, I will then click here on 3D Studio. And then I will make sure to click on this wizard over here. And now to actually start uploading our mesh and to retopologize it is what we need to do is go to the low mode topology over here. Then we choose here local model. And then just make sure to use here, for example, the leg as a first thing. And once it's imported, you can see we have it then in here. You can, by the way, also switch to the clay mode when you go here. And you will see that we have here our high poly mesh, you know, with the triangles and so on. And what I will do now is basically that I go in here, choose then for the model count. I will choose in my case, and you can also already see what it's doing. So it will improve it that we have then this nice quads over here. So what I will do is choosing here high. In case you would like to have a truly low poly character for your game, in case it's like a background asset, or you would like to duplicate it like, I don't know, 100 times or something, then make sure maybe to either choose like the low model face count over here or the middle one. I would choose the high poly one because this one will be more like in the front as a hero character, stuff like this. I would then choose the quadrilateral and then generate immediately. And then I will wait for the result. All right, and once it's retopologized, you can see it here. Sometimes it will take a while, but it's really worth it because as you can see, when I now go back to the wireframe, as you can see, the model face count is like 13k and the number of vertices around 6k. Of course, it's on some parts still a bit messy, but this is okay because, for example, here we have a robot model, so we don't have that much stretching or something going on. And don't get discouraged because right now it looks like very smooth and washed out. But when we download this now and import it then into Blender, you will see that it looks then kind of clean. And before you export, we are not done yet. One more thing we need to do is that we go here to the UV tab over here, because we want to have our low poly model, of course, also with UVs. So what I will do is click here on intelligent UV unfolding, and then it will directly automatically create UVs for us. And once it's finished, as you can see, we get then here this UV shells, which I think for an auto UV does a really good job, and it's way better than the Blender one. So this is quite decent, and we can use this then as our UV mesh, and we can then also adjust, for example, the shades and so on in Blender if we would like to do that. For downloading it then back into Blender is that we go here to download, then choose FBX file, and then make sure to save it onto your PC. I will do then the same thing, by the way, for all the other parts. And once we are then back into Blender, what we can do now is that I'm going to File, Import, FBX, And now I can choose then the files I downloaded and then just hit import FBX. And then the great thing is, since we positioned it already in 3D space and froze all the transforms and so on, you will see that the generated part that we imported is at the exact same spot as our high poly mesh. And this is really great because like this, we can then easily bake now our high detail onto our low poly mesh. And this is also very easy to do. So I will show you this in a second. Just make sure to not move it around. And what I can do now is, for example, that I hide here my leg, and you will see that we have here then our low poly mesh. And you will see also over here when I go to the wireframe that we then have it here in this low poly style, and it looks way cleaner than before. And like this one, we can then work from here, and it will also have the UVs as you can see here. I will do this now with the rest, and then in a second we can finally move on with baking our high poly meshes into normal maps. Okay, and once we then have all our parts retopologized and UV'd and then re-imported, you can see that we have them at the right spot as well, which is great. And I renamed them here to low poly, so we have them as this. Maybe I can also give them here quickly the names for it. And now we can finally start to bake our normal map, for example, so that we have the detail from our high poly mesh, which is of course not captured here anymore in the low poly one, and that we then have this detail also in the retopologized version that we see over here. And this is really easy to do, so because we have them at the right position already. So what I will do first is always that I'm going to create a new material over here, and I will call this something like this, and then I will make sure that I drag out a new window over here by going on the top and then drag, and then make sure that we're going to our shader editor. And once we are in here, what I will do then as the next step is that I'm going to enable the high head model that we have over here. And as you can see, it's aligning with the same position that we have. And then what I will do is that I'm going to, with Shift and A, create here an image texture like this. And once I have that, I will then make sure that I go here to new, call this then normal map and something like head. Then I will make sure to choose here a higher resolution. I could go here for 4K. This may be a bit too high for a game mesh, but you can decide whatever you like here. So let's go with 4K, why not? Otherwise, make sure to choose something like 2K. This is also fine. And then I will make sure that I'm hitting here new image. And then very important is that we're changing color space from sRGB to non-color because it's a normal map and we don't need sRGB color space in there. And then once we have that, next step is then that we finally now baked all the details that we have on our high poly mesh onto the low poly one. To do this is that we go to render, then make sure that you choose your cycles and CPU, then scroll down to bake, and then check here the bake from multi-res. Once we have that, there's only one more thing to do, and this is that we go into the modifiers. Then I will choose my low poly mesh that I have over here. Then I will search for the modifier, which is called shrink wrap, like this. Then I will choose here our high poly mesh, where it says here object target, and choose here high head. And when I now hide the high poly mesh, you will see that something is changing here. This is because the mesh will then fit onto the high poly mesh, and this is important that we have it like this. And now we can, subdivide our low poly mesh to get then the details on it. And this is by using another modifier called here multi-res, like this, multi-resolution. Just drag it here on top of the other one, and then make sure that we subdivide it so that we subdivide our mesh, that it gets more polygons, and then it will be able to capture the detail that we have over here. So just subdivide this a few times, and you will see that with each step, we will get more detail into our mesh. And then as you can see, when we have 4, this could be already way more than enough. You will see that we get this really nice details over here, and we can then use this one by then first applying our shrink wrap. So make sure to hit here apply. And then next thing is that we go here to levels of viewport and choose here 0 again, so that we are on our low poly mode again, because now we have a difference where we bake like from the low poly to the high poly level on our sculpt mesh over here. And now we can go to render and then just go back here to the bake option and choose here bake from multi-res. We would like to have a normal map. Select then the node that we have over here and just choose bake. And you can see this worked without any problems. And now we can check when we go to material preview over here. We can now plug in, for example, here to the color into the surface, and you will see that we have a perfect normal map with all the details in here. And once we have our normal map, how we can use it actually, that you see how powerful it is, is that we're going to our render view over here. And what I can do now is I can also switch here quickly to GPU so that it's a bit faster. Just make sure to remember that you switch back to CPU when you bake the other parts. But what we can do now is that I create here with Shift a normal map node like this. And then I will plug in the color in here and make sure that I plug in the normal into the principal BSDF. And I will choose here that I reconnect this one to our shader, and you will see that we get all those nice details yet and now into our base model, because without it, when I set it to 0, you will see that we have little to no detail, and with our normal map, we're getting all those nice details back. And this is basically why we do this step. I will now go ahead and do the same steps for all the other meshes that we have here as well. And once we did that for each of them, I can go here also to the render view, and you will see that we have it for each part now selected over here. And next step is now finally that we can now start texturing our meshes. I will also show you that quickly. So we only need to launch ComfyUI and install Trellis too. And in case you haven't done that already, I will link you here a video where you can see it step by step. Otherwise, you can already use Trellis too. And in case you don't want to use ComfyUI for this step and have a faster way to texture your model, what you can do as well is that you sign up here for a free account on Modddif.com, and here you can then directly texture your models in Modddif for free. But I just wanted to show you as well the Trellis way, because it's also really straightforward, but you can choose whatever method you prefer. And in order now to texture it in ComfyUI, one last thing we need to do is to re-export it as OBJ file, because it won't read FBX files for now. So what I can do is then go here, file, and then export, choosing here then the .obj file, and then make sure just to save it here. And once you have that, we can then jump into ComfyUI. Once we are done here, as mentioned, we use here the Trellis to mesh texturing node. And I will also link you this workflow down below that you have it. And what we can do here is that I'm first going to choose my file to upload. And I did that here already by selecting, for example, here this tail. And as you can see, I did this here already by just putting in the path. So just make sure to copy the path of your exported file over here, and then just make sure to paste that in here. Just make sure that you get rid of the double quotes on the beginning and the front, and then it will be loaded incorrectly. And then as you can see, everything else is already set up for you, which is great. And we can also make sure that we have here the base color image saved and the metallic roughness, because those ones will also help us later on. So just make sure that you have them as well. And then you can basically run the workflow by just hitting here on run. And once it's done, you will then actually see that we then have our mesh over here with the texture attached, and it will be then in our output folder under textured mesh. And we can use this then to actually re-import it. I did the same with the torso, for example, as you can see here, where we're getting also quite a nice result, and in Blender it will be also in a better resolution because it's just a preview over here. And you can basically do that with every body part you have from your character, then just pipe it through. And once we have that, we can go then back into Blender, and here I can then go to File, Import, and make sure that I'm choosing here GLB. And then I will go to my output folder from ComfyUI, and you will see here that we have a textured mesh, the latest one. Then I can say here merge vertices, but doesn't really matter. And as you can see, we then have here our textured mesh when I go into it. And this one we can now apply to our baked material. So what I will do is I'm selecting here the body, then I will make sure to reconnect this to the surface. So we have here the detail, and then I will basically copy and paste the map that we have over here, the node, in here with Ctrl C and V, and then just hook this up. And then as you can see, we then have our normal map combined with the base color over here. And this way we can do it then for the whole character. The textured mesh will, by the way, also give you a metallic and roughness map that you can see over here. So just make sure that you also copy this over, for example, here to the tail, and then just make sure to hook it up like I did it here. And then we're having it actually the green channel to the roughness map and the blue one to the metallic one. Okay, great. And then last step is for our textured model is that we then mirror it over. So what I will do is that I'm going here into the modifier, then I'm selecting here mirror modifier. And as you can see, this will then get here our arm kind of. We can do the same then for the leg like this. And then as you can see, we have it symmetric. And as you can see, we get some really nice textures going on here also over the leg and stuff. So this is cool. Here I also used a mix of both, by the way. So for example, the legs I textured in Modddif, but then for the other parts, for example, the head and so on is made in Trellis. So you can then choose whatever fits you best kind of. All right. And then last and final step in Blender is that we can actually rig our character once we have the textures and so on set in here. All right. And for the rigging of our character, I will use the Auto Rig Pro add-on that you can see over here. And I really have to say it was so worth it to purchase it. I'm not like sponsored or something by the author of the rig, but it's really amazing because this tool, I have no experience in rigging at all, but it helps so much, you know, to rig your characters, especially like ones that are generated by AI and with this workflow. So I can highly recommend it to check it out. It has also game engine support, as you can see here, that we have fast retargeting in Unreal Engine, which is also amazing. And it's way easier to rig it. In case you would like to skip that step, you could also skip directly to Mixamo as a next step, but we will use this rig and then we will import this rig into Mixamo because it's way cleaner from the skinning and stuff like this. This will be also in the video description. It's a one-time purchase in case you purchase the full version over here, and it's then for life and you will get all the updates and stuff. So this is really cool. So I will go then back in here and you can just simply install it by go to Edit, Preferences, and then to the Add-ons tab, and then make sure to install it over here. But there is also a guide attached to it how you can properly install it. And I will then go first to our front view over here, and I will make sure here also to combine our mesh. And once I have that, first thing I'm doing is that I'm going here to Auto Rig Pro Smart, because this is really easy and will be way faster to rig our character. So we do this quickly and say get selected objects. I will make sure that I'm choosing here only full body because we don't really need a face rig for this one. And then I'm hitting OK. And now we can already set our markers. And the great thing is that this tool is so smart that it will guess the markers itself. So it will make sure that I enable here symmetrical character samples on the highest one, and then I say guess markers. And then once I have that, you can see that it automatically set markers for our character, which is great. We just have two that we might need to fix. So you can quickly do that by just selecting it and then dragging it around. As you can see, symmetry is also enabled for this one, which is great. And then I can just place it like this. So what I will do is when I'm kind of happy with this one here, that I go to, you know, create the rig. So I will say here go. And as you can see, it then creates the bone for us, and this could be great already. In case you would like to change it here, what you can also do is always like selecting the limb, then we can go to limb options and increasing here, for example, the twist bones to something like 3. And you will see then that we get here then an additional leg that we can use. So we'll go to the side view again with 3 and then just, you know, adjusting it a bit. And this could already work quite well, something like that. And to add now our tail, what I will do is you will see that we have a chain over here, which is kind of the spine. So I will go to the side view and modify this, that it looks a bit better overall by selecting all of them and then rotating them. And you can see that we have a lot of limbs here, so maybe that's a bit too much. So I will, let's say 6, I think is okay, kind of. So let's align them here as well, or maybe let's change it to 4. And this is looking better already, so it's that it's a bit more organized. And for the head bone, we can also shift this up a little bit more and say something like this. And to now actually add the tail, what I will do is selecting also this again. Then we can go to add limb and say here tail. And as you can see, we have this here. Make sure that you choose this here to multipad, so we get the correct orientation and stuff like this. And then we can start placing it again. Here we would also like to have more, so I will do the same thing again, limb options, and increase this then to, let's say 8 maybe, something like this. And then we can start placing our tailbones. Maybe we need to adjust the spine a bit more. And one last thing I would like to do for the rig is that we can close and open his mouth. So what I will do is select here the head bone. This is always the big one that you have over here. Then I will go to limb options, facial. Then I will make sure to deselect all of this because we don't really need it. I will only need the mouth. And here I will also deselect everything basically. So we keep it to a very minimum. And then for the others, I can also disable this and we can keep it like this. And then I can hit OK. And now you will see that we get like this tiny bones here and this one. And this is the main one we need. So we'll just shift this down a bit more. And then I will kind of move this one also with G again and move it down a bit, that we have it like as a jawbone. And then for those ones here, I will scale them up. And you will see it's already like a mouth, and you can always look them up, by the way, when you go to rig and then scroll down here, and you will see this one is one from the bottom because it says here BOT, and those ones are here from the top. So, and then you just need to roughly place them that they kind of align. When we see them from the front, you can see that they are kind of spread apart. So just make sure to also, you know, bring them a bit closer. Something like this could work. And once I have that, what I can do now is that I generate my rig. So I will say match to rig. And the amazing thing is, as you can see, that we get all the controllers nicely aligned. Everything is working already, which is amazing. And it's much faster than when you would start from scratch, you know, in Blender with rigging. So I think this is really impressive. And now to bind our model and our controllers is that I'm going here to object mode. And then I'm selecting first my character, then my rig. And then I'm going to skin, and I'm choosing here voxelize because this apparently seems to work best with Unreal Engine. So I will choose this one. Make sure that I take here preserve volume and voxel res, we can leave it 7. And then I will go to bind. And this will now kind of apply the weights from our bones onto our character mesh. And once this is done, this took like 10 seconds or something, we can now go into the front view. Then I will select my rig again to test it, then to pose mode. And now when I move like this one, for example, you can see that our leg is moving, which is amazing because now we already have our rig. Of course, you can adjust the weights here a bit. I explained this in another tutorial. When you would like to see this, I will link it to you here on the top. Apart from that, you know, it's working really well already. As you can see, I can bend the tail as well, which is amazing. And we have our whole character over here, which I can also move here in the middle. And as you can see, this is working well. Just to show you the jaw as well, as you can see, I can also now rotate this and close the jaw and so on. So I think this is also great. And once I have that, I can now select all of it by going to object mode again, like this. And now it's very important that we export it. And there's a really cool option in the AutoRig Pro that it's adjusted for Unreal Engine. And it's also working really well in Mixamo then. So what I will do is I'm going to File, Export, and now I'm choosing here the AutoRig Pro FBX option. And once I have that, just make sure that we then go to humanoid because this was working best. Then we can also check our rig, for example, so it will then fix like small issues maybe that are not working yet. And this looks all great so far. And what I can do now is that I hit here, give it a name like rigging dino humanoid. Then I go and hit here AutoRig Pro, and then we have our character exported with the rig. One thing I forgot is that you also make sure to hit here Unreal Engine, otherwise it won't work. And then I will do the same steps really quick again. Make just sure that you have checked this and rename for Unreal Engine as well. And as you can see, it's saying here 6 spine bones are required to match the Unreal Engine mannequin hierarchy. So you could also change that, but usually it should work like this now. So let's say version 2. Next step is now that we're going to animate our character. To do that, I'm using here again Mixamo because it's one of the best options out there when we would like to have like automated animations. Alright, and once we are in Mixamo, as you can see, I did this here as a test already. What I can do now is that I'm choosing here an animation, for example, a walk animation. So we'll simply type in here walk, and then for example, we can choose this one. And as you can see, this is working really nicely, and we have in them walking down. I can also say that we would like to have it in place, for example, for a game character. And once I have that, you can also make here adjustments if you would like that. And once you have that, I can then click here on download, make sure that I have FBX with skin 30 frames per second, and hit download and then save the file. Same we can then do with, for example, running, to have him run. you can choose then, for example, this one here. Same again, we can choose here the running motion that we then can transform him from walk into run, for example. And this one we can then also download. As the last step, we also would like to have an idle animation. So I can also choose, for example, this one here, that we have it. And this is also working great. And this one I can also download then, and just make sure to name it like idle or .fbx or something like this. We can then directly dive into Unreal Engine to import then our final character. Alright, and once we are in Unreal Engine, I chose here the third person template, and what we can do now is that we need to import our model, and we will first import our skeleton mesh, like the rig that was in the default pose, so the one that we exported from Blender, and then all the animations. So what I will do is go, for example, then to the ones I exported, choosing here the FBX file that I went from export. And then I'm going here import, and this is then our universal rig, like the skeleton mesh that we can see over here. When I drag it in, you can also see it here. And then now to import our animation, I will also go to import, then to where we exported our animations from Mixamo. So we do this quickly, and then I can choose, for example, here the running one. Then I'm going to open, and now here I can then choose the rig test universal skeleton that I just imported. So the humanoid one, going to import, and then I can just drag and drop this in here, for example. And as you can see, when I now go in here and frame this character with F, you can actually see that when I play this, you will then see that over here, you will then have the animated character where it's running and so on. You can do this also with the other animations to do stuff like this, where you have it like as a character and then idle pose and then going to running. This requires a bit more of a complicated setup, which would be way too long to show in this video. So in case you would like to see how this is working as well, please let me know down below, and then I will do an extra video for this step as well, that you have it then like this, and then I can control it and move it around. Otherwise, you can also have it as mentioned, you know, just import it like this, that you have them running and so on. So yeah, I think this could be also quite useful. So I really hope you have enjoyed this video. And in case you would like to see an entirely free workflow with this stuff to create game ready assets, also let me know down below. And please make sure to subscribe to the channel and to also follow my free newsletter Future Frames to learn more about AI 3D workflows. And having said that, actually see you on the next one.